So if you don't like the message, try to shoot the messenger. If you don't, if you shoot as the messenger, it's mainly because you try to shoot down the message. And there's a whole industry out there who are for sale for anybody who wants to take down an image or who wants to make people talk about other things that they are more interested in. So if they want to move lawmakers or move the public opinion, you can buy their services if you have the money. I'm Fredrik Gertten. I'm a documentary filmmaker from Malmö, and it's kind of cool to be a documentary filmmaker right now because we have a great audience all over the world. And if media is in crisis, documentary film is certainly not. We have a growing audience. And it's my job to tell stories. And if I do it well, voices that are normally not heard will get heard, will get an audience. But of course, again, if somebody don't like the message, they might come after you. And I can tell you, I have some kind of almost roller coaster experience out of this.
Dole Foods is suing a Swedish filmmaker for wanting to show a fraudulent documentary slamming the company.
Wow.
Malmöfilmaren Fredrik Gertten stäms av det amerikanska bananföretaget Dole. Företaget hävdar att filmen Bananas är en bluff.
So in 2009, I premiered a film called Bananas. I had followed a court case in Los Angeles where banana workers from Nicaragua had been suing Dole Food Company for the use of a banned pesticide, a pesticide that made the workers sterile. And in the court case, there was a letter from Dow Chemicals, the producer of this pesticide, and they told Dole, please stop using this pesticide because our American factory workers are sterile. And Dole answered and said, no, please send us more products. This is a breach of a contract. And in the end, they kept using this pesticide in some countries 6 more years and some others up to 9 years longer after it was banned in the US and in Europe. Can you imagine that kind of moral? And of course, they don't want a story to come out. Have a look up there. In the end of the poster, I have an asterisk. And the asterisk is like a reminder to all of us to look for more facts. Because there's always something behind the glossy image of a message or of a product. And I think if we look for the other side, we're talking about the banana companies, there's 100 years of oppression, of logging the rainforest, of grabbing people's lands, of killing union leaders, of taking down governments. That's what you should look at. When you go into and you see the beautiful yellow banana, that's the story you also should know. And this one, can you imagine if that message would be in your shop? 1/3 of the production price of banana goes to pesticide. So every conventional banana you buy has been under this cloud from the plains. And can you imagine having your own kids living behind, very close to plantation, where this cloud is drifting in over you, where the groundwater is poisoned? That's the story about the banana you have in your shop. That one. And so we had made this film. We had worked for 2 years. It's a very tough and it's a long job to do a documentary. We really have to dive into a story. But we'd done the film and we were accepted to have our world premiere at the Los Angeles Film Festival. And it was a huge award and it was cool. So 1 month before the premiere, we opened our webpage and we put our trailer out for the first time. It was May, like this, a very nice, warm day. And it took 24 hours, and we received a letter from Dole. And it wasn't a love letter. It was a very, very, very tough letter, a cease and desist letter. Stop, go away, forget about your film. If you show it, we're going to sue you. And it will not be easy. It will be punitive damages, meaning a lot of money that you have to pay, that we know you don't have it. So it was kind of scary. And the same letter was sent to the festival, to every sponsor of the festival, meaning also big companies like American Airlines, Heineken, Target supermarkets. The CEOs of these companies also got this thick package from Dole, and they really wanted to scare people. And they were quite successful because the festival, they said, okay, you can show the film and we will place it in a special section a little bit outside of everything. So we will say this film is not true. So they had found a way of handling it. But when you send in a letter like that, it's never only about lawyers. It's about the whole spin. It's about moving attention from one place to another. And they had tactics. This is Juan Dominguez. Juan Dominguez is a personal injury lawyer in Los Angeles, and he represents people who have no money. So mainly Latinos, but he has had some buses. But of course, if you're a white, middle-class media, you will laugh at that guy. Looks like a sleazy Cuban ambulance chaser, doesn't it? And he's representing the banana workers. And he was doing that without making any money on it. He was totally on contingency basis with the banana workers. But Dole constructed then a story about a very naive Swedish filmmaker who suddenly made this sleazy Cuban into a hero. But in fact, he was a crook. And that story, which of course not was true, was extremely attractive to a lot of media. It filtered out and it became the big story. This should of course be the story, that Dole kept using a banned pesticide, even when the producer asked them to stop. But the journalist never went with that angle. So I was there in LA, trying to defend myself, trying to get the story from the banana workers out. But it was hard. I remember AP had a photographer coming to my hotel room. They wanted to take a picture of me. And the photographer was all the time to tell me to, don't smile, don't smile. They wanted me to look really sad, like a guy that really had fucked it up. And so it wasn't that funny. You shouldn't laugh. It was not one of the best times of my life, I tell you. But we showed the film. And after the first screening, we got a letter from Dole saying, if you show it again, we'll sue you. We showed it one more time, and nothing happened. And I returned to Sweden, again, a lovely summer day, and yes, they sued us. And it wasn't, I mean, when it really came down that paper, it was like seeing myself from afar. You know, it was a dizzy feeling of what is going on and how will this end? Because the guys, these owners, they are like plantation owners. They are like from a different century. Their logic is not ours. It's hard to understand how they think. And they didn't only sue me, they also sued my producer, Margaret, and our production company. So they put a lot of pressure on a very small group of people. And if I had this kind of Al Gore ladder now, you can imagine the size of Dole. They make $7 billion a year. I can't reach so high. And we make like, which somewhere down here. It's like, there is no real relation between us. But still, in the media, it was Dole versus Fredrik. Dole versus a documentary filmmaker who fucked up. And that story kept going. This is the poster from a film called Big Boys Gone Bananas, which is a story I did about Dole's attack on freedom of speech. And it was quite a tough time, but we managed to turn the story around. And it's actually started here in a cheese shop at the corner where I live, where I met a member of parliament from the Social Democratic Party. He asked, Fredrik, can we do something from you? And I said, well, why don't we show the film in the Swedish parliament? And he then contacted a parliamentarian from the Conservative Party, and they arranged the screening. And then there was a petition in the Swedish parliament saying, Dole, stop suing Swedish filmmakers. And they asked them to withdraw the lawsuit. Because in Sweden, we have the oldest free press legislation in the world. It's 250 years old today. Hooray. It's actually quite cool. It's 10 years older than the American Constitution's First Amendment. So that's a pride for Sweden, that the whole parliament stood up behind us. But there was also more factors. It was consumers that said, this is enough. And they went into the shop and said, we don't want to see your Dole bananas here, because they're suing Swedish filmmakers. So the story started to turn around. I started to feel a little bit happier, and because it wasn't as much Fredrik versus Dole, it was Dole versus free press, free speech. And of course, that's shifting the focus back to where it should be. And of course, also trying to shift it back to the banana workers. Then this guy. Alfonso Allende. He lives here in Malmö, and he went into Max Hamburgers. It's a Swedish hamburger chain, and they sell themselves as greener and more responsible. I mean, you have to check them if they are, but they gave him a Dole fruit salad to his meal, and he said, "Come on, I can't buy this." And then he went home and he wrote a letter to Max Hamburgers and said, "Come on, this is not okay." And they actually answered him the day after. "No, you're right. We'll take it away from tomorrow." So they stopped selling the fruit salad, and suddenly the heat started to be on Dole. All the supermarkets in Sweden felt now the pressure, because in their shops, bananas is 1% of the sale. It's an extremely rentable product. So and they called Dole to a meeting in Sweden, and they told them, "If you don't stop this lawsuit, we have to stop selling your bananas." And of course, they didn't want to. But when I started to do these projects, the sale of fair trade bananas was 5% in Sweden. Now they're over 50%, and the overall sale of fair trade products have risen more than 800%. So it makes a difference if you talk about things, and if we also stay focused and try to shift the focus back to where it should be. There is no planet B, you know that. And kids know it. There is a survey in Sweden showing that 50% of all Swedish kids, they really worry about the climate change. And some worry so much that they have pain in their stomachs. But still, what happens? We buy more cars. So at this moment in history, it's never been sold so many cars. We should talk about climate, but the car makers, they invest in propaganda because they don't want to change the world. They want to change the world in their little pace, and their pace is extremely slow. And even when they fuck up totally, like Volkswagen did. This is Markus Rosenberg in our loved Malmö team, scoring again. But look at his chest, it's a Volkswagen brand. We didn't have that before Volkswagen did this crooked thing with the car emissions. Really, really crooked things. This big, honorable company, their cleanest car was actually their most dirty car. And their message to the world is putting their brand out everywhere instead of doing the right things. It's kind of provocative. Anyway, remember 2008, the banks went down. And we thought, all of us, or many of us, that now let's talk about a responsible financial system. Let's talk about responsible banks. And the taxpayers bailed out the banks. And 13 million people lost their homes in the US. One banker went to prison. More bankers went into the Trump government from the same criminal companies. Can you imagine how much they put into PR to change the world, to make us talk about other things? They made us talk about Greece, it's the Greeks' fault. They were putting a lot of effort to making us forget about their mistakes. And it's our job to try to bring the focus back to what we should talk about, because if we don't, they will win. This slide is orange, because during the 2016 presidential campaign in the US, a lot of people started to talk about the hair color of Donald Trump. And a lot of people were tweeting about it, Facebooking about it. Whatever he said, we hated it or we loved it. And it meant overall that we didn't talk about the climate. So in the US TV, the reporting on the climate change went down 66% last year. Can you imagine if we had been talking about the climate last year? Do you think Donald Trump would have won? He has no politics for it. So it's up to us. If we will want to be part of that noise and just resending and entering into debates that they create, you will never stand a chance. So the kids are right. There is no planet B, and we have to also return to what we tell our own children. We tell our children to be good. We tell them to take care of our planet, and we need to have that moral for ourselves and try to get out on the noise, because there's a lot of noise out there. And the PR people, it's the biggest industry on the planet right now. It's really growing, and they have the most skillful people, former journalists, former politicians, former military people. They all, and if you have a lot of money, you can buy their service to make people talk about other things instead of the real things. And our job, well, if we want change, we need to fight back, and we have to stay focused. And, well, I'm Fredrik Gertten, and I actually arrived on a bike. I don't eat crooked bananas, and please watch more documentaries. Thanks.